June 12, 2025. A calm, cloudless morning in Ahmedabad. Nothing about the weather or airport conditions hinted at disaster. Air India Flight AI171, a Boeing 787 Dreamliner, was cleared for takeoff. The destination, London Heathrow. On board were 241 passengers, 12 crew members, and 2 infants. Just after 9:43 a.m., the plane began its climb. What should have been a routine departure. But just 30 seconds after liftoff, tragedy struck. The aircraft nose-dived into the ground and exploded in a ball of fire, smashing through a college hostel near the airport. The crash killed 229 people on board, all 12 crew and 19 civilians on the ground. Only one person, an economy-class passenger seated in 18A, survived. At first, it was thought to be a freak accident, maybe a catastrophic engine failure, a bird strike, sabotage. But what investigators found in the days that followed was more disturbing than anyone could have imagined. This was not caused by any external force, no weather anomalies, no mid-air collision, no bombs. In fact, the engines didn't fail on their own. They were shut down, manually, both of them, one after the other. In what now appears to be one of the most inexplicable aviation incidents in recent memory, the plane essentially died in mid-air, just moments after takeoff. According to the preliminary report released by India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, AAIB, both fuel shutoff switches, critical toggles that control engine fuel supply, were moved from run to cutoff just after the plane left the ground. These switches are heavily guarded and designed specifically to prevent accidental activation. They require firm, deliberate action. And yet, they were disengaged, within 1 second of each other. The cockpit voice recorder captures a moment of panic and confusion. One pilot is heard saying, "Why did you cut off?" And the other, in shock, replies, "I didn't." In the next breath, "Mayday, mayday, mayday." What followed was the deadly silence of 2 engines losing power, leaving the Dreamliner gliding helplessly, unable to maintain altitude. The right engine briefly showed signs of recovery when the switch was flipped back, but by then it was too late. The aircraft slammed into the earth, devastating an educational building and killing several students inside. It was the worst air disaster in India in over a decade, but what followed, the investigation, might prove even more shocking than the crash itself. As authorities began dissecting every second of the flight, experts quickly raised doubts about the official suggestion of possible pilot error. Could 2 highly trained pilots, both with over 7,000 hours of flight experience, accidentally flip both fuel cutoff switches in the middle of takeoff? Aviation analyst Captain Kapil Nanda called it technically implausible. The switches are not just separate, they're reinforced by guards that must be lifted before toggling. "Unless you were trying to shut the engines off, this should not happen," he said. So what could cause both switches to move almost simultaneously? The 787 Dreamliner is a state-of-the-art, fly-by-wire aircraft. That means many of its systems, including engine control, are routed through complex digital inputs. It's possible, some argue, that a glitch in the flight management system sent false signals to the engines. Others suspect electromagnetic interference could have affected avionics. But both scenarios are incredibly rare, especially given that Boeing's testing protocols are among the strictest in the world. Then came a critical discovery. In 2018, the FAA had issued a non-mandatory bulletin warning airlines about potential issues with the fuel shutoff switch guards on certain Boeing aircraft. The advisory stated that under specific vibration conditions, an improperly maintained or older switch cover could allow unintended movement. Air India had never acted on that bulletin. Why? Because it wasn't required. The report, when released, confirmed that AI171 had not been retrofitted with updated switch guards. If that bulletin had been taken seriously, this crash may have been avoided. Suddenly, attention turned from pilot error to corporate negligence. But there were more questions. Why did the cockpit voice recorder only include partial audio? Why was the sole survivor placed under intense government security and moved to a classified medical facility away from media contact? And why was the AAIB so quick to suggest crew error before releasing all technical data? The public backlash was immediate. the Indian Pilots Union, ALPA India, accused the AAIB of scapegoating the crew to protect Boeing and the Directorate General of Civil Aviation, DGCA. Their statement read, "We demand full disclosure of black box data, cockpit audio, and component analysis. This was not simple human error." With the pressure mounting, the Indian government formed a multi-agency investigative committee, including Boeing, GE Aviation, the engine manufacturer, the US NTSB, the UK AAIB, and ICAO. Their goal? To find the truth, piece by piece. The engines were shipped to GE's advanced facility in Cincinnati. There, engineers began dismantling every module, looking for signs of short circuits, oil starvation, microfractures, or faulty electronics. Early analysis suggested that the engines were mechanically sound, no evidence of compressor stall, no fire, no bird ingestion. Simultaneously, analysts in Bengaluru began recovering encrypted data from the aircraft's internal system logs. Although the impact had damaged some memory banks, critical flight control data, specifically engine command history, was still intact. This data revealed no manual input to shut the engines from the flight control computers, pointing back to the manual switch movement. Then came the chilling third theory. What if it was deliberate? Aviation history is no stranger to pilots taking down aircraft. Germanwings 9525, Egypt Air 990, Malaysia Airlines 370. Could AI171 join that terrifying list? Investigators began to scrutinize the mental health of the flight crew. One pilot had recently undergone a routine psych evaluation. No red flags. But further digging revealed that during a 2024 simulator session, one of the pilots reported instability in the switch mechanism, citing intermittent cutoff commands when toggling fuel systems. The log entry was never escalated. Could this have been the early sign of a mechanical defect? Or a sign of something more deliberate, more calculated? Meanwhile, the lone survivor slowly began to recover. Hospital staff, under NDAs, leaked one crucial detail. The survivor recalled a sudden clicking noise just before the engines cut out, followed by a moment of eerie silence. Investigators are now trying to correlate that noise with the physical components recovered from the console, specifically the fuel cutoff switch guards. Every twist in the case adds new complexity. And yet, despite all this evidence, there is still no definitive answer. Was this a bizarre coincidence of mechanical failure, a software-induced catastrophe, or was it negligence that led to the deaths of 260 people? The second interim report is due in November 2025, with the final report scheduled for release by mid-2026. Until then, families wait, the world watches, and airlines hold their breath. The Air India AI171 tragedy is no longer just a crash investigation. It's a reckoning, a test of transparency, accountability, and the willingness of billion-dollar companies to admit fault when the consequences are fatal. Aviation is built on the sacred triangle of trust between manufacturer, pilot, and passenger. When that triangle collapses, even for 30 seconds, the results are catastrophic. This case is not just about what went wrong on that aircraft. It's about what wasn't fixed, what wasn't disclosed, and perhaps what was covered up. And so we ask again, how does a Dreamliner drop from the sky in perfect weather with no external force? Only the switches know. This is Factastic, and we'll be tracking the truth until the final report is released. Make sure to subscribe, leave your theory in the comments, and share this video with someone who still believes that modern planes can't just fall from the sky. Because sometimes it's not just a crash, it's a warning.